Hi, welcome to season 7. We're now in episode 4 of what we're calling the dark side of marketing. I'm Mary Abazia, and with me is Tom Spitali and Sean Wellham. Hey guys.
Hi.
We're calling this series the dark side because we find that there are so many stories out there that there is a dark side to them, but they're employing a lot of marketing type disciplines that if you kind of turn it around and look at it in a different way, there are some best practices coming out of some bad ideas or some bad behavior. And so, Tom, you're introducing this one. Can you share with us what we're talking about today?
Yes, today we are going to talk about Martin Shkreli, the Pharma Bro, as he is known, from his jail cell today, where he sits. Martin Shkreli was a young man who was first in the financial services business and migrated over to the pharmaceuticals business. His way of operating was to be a part of organizations that were marketing drugs for rare diseases, very specialized diseases. And his strategy was to, once he took over these companies and became in a position of power, he started off as an advisor in some of these companies when he was in the financial services businesses, and then he moved over to various powerful positions, including being the leader, the CEO of a couple of the companies that he was a part of. You know, what he would do would be to just change the business model. What he would limit the distribution channels for the drugs. So he would make partnerships with maybe one distribution channel, just extremely limit the supply of these specialty drugs. And once the supply was limited, then he would raise the price by an amazing multiple, you know, 10s and 20 times more than the price was on the market. And you know, because people had no other recourse but to buy this drug, the financial fortunes of the companies he was a part of, you know, really ratcheted up. But obviously, you know, that it also raised a lot of rancor, you know, amongst patient advocates and the people that had these diseases. And eventually, you know, the government found a way to charge this guy with the crime, and that's why he sits in jail today. But, you know, for a long time, he was able to market premium price drugs at a major premium to the benefit of the bottom line, but to the detriment of the people that he was serving. So today we kind of want to unpack the pricing strategy, the strategies of the Pharma Bro. By the way, he's called the Pharma Bro because, you know, he was young and he used to use the expression bro in a lot of the strategic texts that he was having with the other people in his company about this, you know, what they were going to do with prices and how they were going to get to the point that where they were. So we're going to unpack the practices of the Pharma Bro today and all that surrounds it.
Okay, that sounds like the sort of name you give yourself, isn't it?
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
like if ever you have if ever you have a nickname that other people give you, it tends to be maybe a little bit of a dig, or maybe it's. But when you call yourself something, that self aggrandization is like a bizarre personality character trait. I think the key about this is finding that price point, isn't it, Tom? It's finding that price point where you find that sweet spot between volume of sales and margin. Every business is looking for that sweet spot. Now, that's an extreme. We are on the dark side, so we look at someone who's essentially price gouging, who's looking to unreasonably price. But nevertheless, I guess the lesson is that there will be a demand and a price response curve for your product, right? At what point does that price response curve fall off? And in the case of a very specific drug, I think it was Daraprim, was it? It was like an AIDS medication for toxoplasmosis. There was this very rare disease, but the price went from $1,200 for a treatment to $69,000 for a treatment. That's more than a 5 times increase.
Yeah.
Having said that, he still sold at that price because there was no alternative. The price response curve was essentially flat. Now, there's a moral argument that we probably won't get into because I think that's clear to everyone that you shouldn't seek to extort. But every business will have this same price response curve. Now, in most markets, it's moderated by competition, maybe by regulation, maybe by alternatives. People don't buy your product, they'll buy something else. You know, you put the price of one fruit item, bananas, you put the price of bananas up, people stop buying that and they buy oranges or something like that. There's always alternatives. Yeah. It's understanding what that price response curve is. That's the key, isn't it? Is knowing where to maximize the profit. The question is, how do we go about that? What tools have we got that we've seen people use?
I don't mind talking about the moral part of this because I think the moral part of this actually has an interesting note to it. But before I even say that, I say a future topic, a positioning topic is about nicknames. He's talking about nicknames. I maintain that you cannot give yourself a nickname; it will never stick, and for some various reasons. So let's make a note that we're going to talk about nicknames in a future, because I think it has some validity around the positioning thing. But
you're going to share with the people that special name you have for me, Tom, or is that just not going to be talked about?
Let's use that as a teaser, for the actual future episode. No, I think the moral part of this is definitely important because we do want our clients to get the maximum price value relationship. You know what I mean? We want them to, and customers are always going to complain about your price no matter what it is. And so oftentimes it's a challenge to find that price point, but it's a lot easier to get a premium price if you have a premium offering and if you're very differentiated, right? I think the difference here is a lot of companies that charge a exorbitant price and get it are in businesses where the values of the people that are buying the product, one of the values is status, and that they can brag to their friends how much they paid for this car, for this watch, And so I think that there's an upper pricing mobility if status is part of the emotional set that is also in this equation. Differentiated value, maybe limited supply, and status as an emotional need of your clients. That's the triumvirate, and that's when you can go really super aggressive. I think the difference in this case is status is not something that these these people that are really sick with a rare disease are seeking. And so I think when you ratchet that price up to that level without that emotional need of status being served, I think that's when it becomes a moral issue. And I think that's the problem with the Pharma Bro and his practices. Bro.
I think another part of your story that is very fascinating to me, because I'm an econ major, is you learn about supply and demand, but Martin the Bro took it to an extreme with the supply lever. We have these different levers, and supply is one of them that can enhance your value, quote unquote, and therefore enhance your opportunity to price. You have more pricing power. So we all know that, but for him to take it to an extreme is interesting. I also am glad, though, to see that we have clients that are doing respirators and many things that are required in this pandemic that are on short supply, and yet they aren't gouging. They're from a moral standpoint, and probably from a legal standpoint, there probably are some limits, a ceiling to some of the prices that they can charge. But it is, as a marketer, you have a lot of levers, and Martin just really kind of put a spotlight on a couple of them for us here.
I think if we are going to talk about the moral question, to me, there's two ways of looking at it. There's a scarce resource, which is the concept of allocative efficiency. How do you make sure those resources get to the most valuable places? And that's where the price mechanism supposedly works best. And it's why a lot of states, incidentally, don't have price gouging laws for disasters. You know, at least a lot of the economists in the states vote against them, whether they have them or not. They argue that not allowing tradespeople or businesses to increase prices during an event like, say, a hurricane or an earthquake or something is actually bad for the allocative efficiency, and the goods don't get to where they need to go. Less dramatically, that's how Uber works. Uber works on the basis that if there's a lot of demand for cars, then the price goes up. That will draw more drivers into the pool, so increase the supply, and will somewhat temper the demand, because unless you really need to get from A to B, you're probably not going to pay the highest prices. So when the price moves with demand and allocates resources efficiently, there's at least an economic argument to counter the moral one. But when you have a fixed market with no choice and a fairly flat demand curve, and you seek to exploit that, that goes back to the very worst aspects of antitrust and monopolies, where you sew up the market to the extent where choice is removed, competition is removed, the need cannot be removed because it's an essential good, and then you seek to profit out of it, which shouldn't be allowed. In this case, wasn't. So I think when you look at it morally, this does sound like a lecture on moral philosophy, but I do think it's important to recognize the difference between gouging a captive market that has no choice versus allocating resources efficiently in a case of extreme demand for that resource, is the way I would characterize them.
What about diamonds, Sean? What about diamonds? I mean, diamonds, you could argue there is a, I know it's not medicine, but for a long time, the diamond industry has tried to, you know, have a hold on that, you know, and if you want to get married, you go down and, you know, Tom, you were saying about ego, you know, you want to say to your significant other, you know, okay, we're going to buy a diamond because I love you so much, and pay a lot of money for it. And so I think, you know, and now that the artificial or the fabricated diamonds are, you know, potentially on the market, it's kind of at least putting some pressure on it. But you know, some would say a diamond is a must-have.
Interesting on that topic, though, Mary. I only picked this up when I lived in the US for a while. The idea that the price you should spend on an engagement ring for the man in a heterosexual engagement to marriage was 2 times your monthly salary was like the minimum. That's like a guide for people, right? And you know who came up with that benchmark?
A woman.
De Beers. It was De Beers, the people that control them.
Let us help you figure out how much you should spend on a diamond.
They're the ones that tell you. Now, the other thing about De Beers is they have sewn up this global supply of diamonds pretty much. But it was them that also introduced the concept of, well, the famous slogan "A diamond is forever" is from them, which became a great song and a James Bond theme tune, I think, as well. And then also the very notion of giving a diamond engagement ring is very much a modern phenomenon. It's not historical. And again, who introduced this concept? Why, it was De Beers. So I think
great marketers. What great marketers.
They stimulated the demand. They then set their price point, saying if you really loved her, you would spend this much money, which is a difficult one to, you know, you try saying to your beloved, look, diamonds are a girl's best friend, but cubic zirconia is pretty good company too. You know, you're not going to get away with that.
Well, but see, this is back to my point, the triumvirate, right? Diamonds are limited in supply, you know, and they're rare by nature, and status is involved. Okay, there's status. It's like, okay, you know, honey, I know that you know, you should spend twice, you know, your monthly salary. I spent 5 or 6 times my salary. You know what I mean? There's an ego gratification on both ends of that equation, the buyer and the recipient. You know, but so I maintain, I go back to, you know, is status a part of the equation? Well, if that is, and you are differentiated and there's limited supply, that's the 3 factors. Go to the top. Otherwise, you know, you've got to think about something else. Look, we're not going to begrudge the fact that, you know, pharmaceutical companies, have some justification for charging, premium prices in some cases, in terms of their, amortizing the research and being motivated to find new drugs. I think part of the problem is with Martin Shkreli is there actually was a reference point before he ratcheted up his price. And when you come with a new to the world solution to something, it's very difficult for people innovators. It's very difficult for them to know what to charge. It's very difficult for customers to know what's fair. There's no reference point. What Martin Shkreli did is there was a reference point, which was the previous price, right? And when he took over some of these companies and then ratcheted it up, you have this idea that, well, wait a minute, if the prior company was able to at least survive at the previous price, what's going on here? Those pesky competitors or that reference point messes up a premium, an unbounded premium price strategy, and it probably should.
I guess it's understanding that value that you derive from it as well, because we talk about premium products, which are fairly obvious. If you buy no one wears a 20 grand watch to tell the time, right? It serves other purposes. But also, if you look at products like smartphones, you get the latest phone release and it's $1,200 for the top of the range, big screen, blah blah blah. But now even most phone manufacturers have a smaller version, maybe a less powerful chip. They have a de-featured version, so you can get a new phone for $699 rather than the $1,200. So they're offering different price points. That's another key part of maximizing the price take, is not putting all your chips on one spin of the wheel and saying we make the premium phone or we make the budget phone. It's spreading those chips over the roulette table, saying we got the budget offer, we got the mid-range, we got the high end, we got the gold plated. You can actually produce a range of products within that sort of price universe to maximize your company's take, rather than thinking of it as a product level. Think of it as a product range as well.
What's that remind you of, Sean? Remember in your home country, we were involved in the baby formula business, where that was absolutely the situation. I think we, without naming names, I mean, what was happening in the market over there was that a company that was previously thought of as the premium price was getting outflanked by a company that was doing exactly, Sean, what you're talking about. That company that had a wider range of offering was actually spending a lot of money to position themselves as the uber premium, the super premium, the best baby formula, closest to breast milk, best thing for your baby's brain. Can become a status kind of situation with some parents. I buy this because my child is worth it and I have the resources and the means to do that. But that same company was also in the market with a low priced solution for people of lesser economic means, lesser featured product, but still, a good product. And the former premium supplier was getting squeezed in the middle.
Yeah, you've got to have that spread, haven't you? And I guess it's also worth looking at when you think of the different value points that exist across different products. It's worth remembering it's dynamic as well. There's no single lever. You don't sit there and say, right, our price will be this, and then you sit back and watch the money roll in, because you're going to get a response, whether it's a competitive response because you're stealing market share, or whether it's a government or a legal response because you are literally gouging the market and that's deemed to be unacceptable, or whether it's a response from your customers that say, I'm going to either not buy your product, right? There's certain products we can do without. If you suddenly say we're going to charge a fortune for a product that's not a necessity, then you'll just stop selling it because people will find something else to do. So it's also dynamic. It's an ongoing battle. Like every part of strategic marketing, it's about optimizing, but then fine tuning constantly. You got your hand on the wheel, giving little course corrections all of the time, and pricing is no different.
So we hope that you have heard a couple of things that might help you as you're thinking about your levers that you can control with marketing, including supply and pricing. So thank you again. We would love to hear your feedback on this podcast or in anything that you think might be noteworthy. You can find us at theaccidentalmarketer.com. We have our podcast there and pretty much anywhere you can get your podcasts. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.